You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is
The Coop. Today, we're talking about unit studies.
Fun. I love unit studies.
Yeah, so we'll let you know a little bit about what they are and then the different types of unit studies and how to create one.
Yeah, and some examples.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, but before we do that, let's start with our scoop on the coop.
All right, I'll go first.
Yeah.
So my kids just started doing Discovery Day.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something offered by our charter school that I didn't sign up for at the beginning of the year because we had enough going on.
Yeah.
And then I was at our school board meeting. And they're like, people are loving the Discovery Day. And it's just a Zoom where one of their elementary teachers is teaching... they actually did, I think, human body last semester. But this semester I saw in the email that it was going to be artists in January. Right. And then food in February. And I thought my kids would love that.
Yeah.
And especially I love it because I'm always trying to infuse art into everything.
Yes.
And so my kids really like it. And my youngest loves it. Right. So that's been fun. She actually did it today, which is why I thought of it. And it was about Matisse. So they tell you the supplies you need. It's just 35 minutes to 50 minutes. It's almost like an out school class. They read a picture book about Matisse.
Oh, cool.
They do an icebreaker and they showed two different types of they were showing two different types of real art and saying, asking questions.
That's really neat.
And then they also did another icebreaker at the end that was like, what would you name this piece of art? And they showed different pieces of art and the kids got to volunteer what they would name it. And
That's cute.
And it's tailored to their grades. So it's K through 2 and then grades 3 to 5. And then you can pick what region you're from. And they're even going to do like a class party.
Oh, fun.
So next week, my 6-year-old gets to do a hot chocolate party. And she's been talking about that ever since she found out about
neat.
it. Yeah. So she doesn't really care about anyone else on the screen. I actually make it so it's speaker view. And she doesn't really see herself, anybody else except herself and the teachers. And they rotate the teachers. Each teacher does a different activity.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And they're all like the K through 2 teachers. And then... my older two get to do it together. So, and it's a totally different activity, but it's still art themed.
That's neat.
So
are they still going to study Matisse, or is even that maybe different for the older two?
That'll be different too.
Oh, cool.
So,
okay.
I can't even remember who they studied last time, but this time, like for my younger one, I had to pre-cut some strips of different color construction paper. And have it ready with the the glue stick and the scissors, and then they just walk them through it.
That's awesome.
And that's about 15-20 minutes. And then when it was over, my daughter wanted to keep going.
Nice.
So she spent
She always does.
She spent another like 10 minutes working on it. So it was really, really cute. So I'm glad we signed up, at least for. And they said for food, we'll be making things with food. So
that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I'd love to see that. Anyways, that was a long scoop.
No, it's a great scoop. Mine is that this past week was our mid-year STAR testing.
Oh, yeah.
So our state testing. So if you're not from California, it's probably called something different.
Yeah.
But our charter school asks us to do it. And we talked about this on a previous podcast. And I don't feel strongly about not doing it. And my daughter doesn't fight or have a hard time taking the test. And so we talked about it being a good practice for test taking skills. Yeah. And it's an interesting way to check in because I don't always know how much value I place in the results, but I'm given the results of the test and it's just interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to compare 3 months ago to now and just see what things look like. And then it just makes me wonder how she was feeling on the test taking day in the fall versus this one.
How much energy she had, what time of day.
Right.
Yeah.
Because on at least one, the results were very vastly different. And it was just really interesting because we have not covered enough to be grade levels apart in our scoring.
Yeah. Between the fall and the winter.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's very intriguing to me. And she's now actually interested in it. She was wondering how she scored. So I'm guessing that has something to do with the differences. I think it felt very annoying to her in the fall. and it was something she was more curious about now. So we kind of talked about her scores, but I don't want it to be about scores. I just want it to be about her, just kind of being able to share what she knows in the way that it's asking her to.
Yeah.
So just like in all of our educational experiences, it's just about the information that she knows based on what she's given.
Yeah.
And so it's just curious and interesting, but that was not our whole school, but that was a big part of our week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, having been a traditional school teacher, state testing was like a really big deal, and weeks were scheduled for it, at different times of the year.
Yes.
And, we would teach test taking skills and make sure you have a good breakfast that day and, all that kind of stuff because, people judge your school based on that. And so, and the reason that homeschool parents have a different take on it is most of us don't actually care how they do on it because they're like for example, I'm teaching Latin.
Right.
They're not getting, I'm not teaching it, actually, the spouse is. But,
but they're learning Latin.
That's not getting tested on.
No.
And that's a valuable subject to us in this moment of time.
Right.
And they're not getting judged on that.
No. And as a homeschool teacher, I actually know their level on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yeah.
I know when we've gone up a notch in math skill or whatever skill because I'm there and I'm proctoring our every day and I have my one child who's schooling right now and I have my other child who's preschool and I also know what he's capable of. I know how many numbers he can recognize and what he can count to and I don't need a test to show me that.
Right.
So I'm happy to participate because it's for the charter school and I receive a benefit from the charter school that's at this moment in time a good situation.
Right.
So that's fine. But it's actually just so funny to me to get the results because it also suggests things that we can work on next based on these skills. And I'm like, I don't think we're going to work on that next.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to continue with what I'm doing. But it's just,
Yeah.
It's
and
just
some people may need that and want that, but yeah, there's an algorithm. There's so many variables involved, and
we could probably dissect this and do an entire podcast about state testing.
I know.
I don't think we want to, but we could.
But that's why it's a scoop.
Yes, that's why it's a scoop. It was a big part of our homeschool this week.
Yeah, and homeschoolers who privately school don't do state testing.
No.
So that's also something like they're completely released from.
Right.
And even knowing where their kid stands and average against other kids' test-taking skills, if you even want to just use it in that form,
Yeah, because it gives you a percentile. So based on all the third graders who are taking this test, this is the result. This is where they fall, which is its own fascinating piece of information. But I hold no value to it because my third grader is not like other third graders. Right, what she's good at could be outside of the test.
Tested on.
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't.
Yeah.
So, and if they're bored with the story that they now have to show their comprehension in, like they wouldn't be reading that story. No. If they're reading that story and they don't care for it, they'll drop that book and move to a different one.
Yep.
So it's not even a valid anything.
I don't put a lot of stock in the results, but it is interesting in a very general sense.
Yeah. And I still want to know the results. And I'm still glad if they surpass, and then I'm still worried if they're under, even though I said everything I just said.
Right.
It still affects me.
Can't help it.
I know. And I still get excited to see what the results are.
And we're both a little bit overachievers, like A+ type of students when we were in school. So I don't think we can completely shed that, no matter what our philosophies and beliefs and practices are.
Yeah.
I still want to know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, All right. So
so I wanted to start with what is a unit study, because I think I've seen on many of the boards, new homeschoolers are, what are you guys talking about with a unit study? Tell me. Well, like, where do I find one? And I just wanted to start with, what is a unit study? So a unit study is an overview of a defined topic or a theme that incorporates multiple subject areas into the study plan. So it can incorporate as many subject areas, language arts, mathematics, social studies, all of them. It could just be a few. It can be, it's just so unique what you can create a unit study for.
And they're really fun to do, I think. And you're probably going to ask us about this later, but it's very reminiscent of my theme day, right?
Yes.
So my theme day could be like a tiny mini unit study.
Exactly.
Because it's just, 4 hours of a unit study, basically.
It's a mini unit study.
Yeah.
We talked about the one we did for Christmas, and that was a prepackaged unit study, but it was considered a mini unit study because it was a shorter period of time.
Right.
So it's more fun to call ours a theme day.
Yeah.
Because it's just more exciting and it seems less school oriented.
Yeah.
A unit study, I think they're fun too because I know what they are and I know what they can be. And so a unit study doesn't seem daunting or overwhelming to me or overly, it's not the same as curriculum. You say curriculum and you're like, oh, okay, wait, hold on.
That's a whole
let
shelf.
me get out my notes.
I know, that's a whole shelf of one subject,
Exactly, yeah. And so the unit study is fun because if it's not something that naturally is going to incorporate math skills, then go ahead, continue with your curriculum that you've chosen if you have one.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of nice thing about a unit study. And so then I thought real quick we would touch on where unit studies come from.
Oh.
So there are prepackaged unit studies that you can purchase. And I can provide a whole list of them in our podcast on our website. So go to our coophomeschool.com/podcast and I'll list a few resources here for you. But one that I've used now for the mini study and then my current one is Gather Round. And so she has 2 school years worth of unit studies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are they per month as she has timed them?
I think they're 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks would be the average unit study if you do a lesson per day.
Okay. And the lesson incorporates all those subjects?
It'll outline which subjects it does incorporate. So if you needed to supplement somewhere, you would already know in advance.
That's nice that it's all done for you.
Yeah.
And it tells you, does it come with the books or it tells you what books to buy?
It's just the plan and the workbooks. So you can buy the digital version or you can buy the pre-printed version and she will mail it to you.
Okay, so like for the Christmas one, we provided our own Bible.
Correct.
She didn't send a Bible with your order.
No. Yeah. And she provided an entire reading list too, which we chose to do an even more condensed version of the mini unit study.
Well, that's the nice thing. You can choose from that. As long as they're not the pages aren't referencing each one of those books. Okay.
No. So the lesson, and so Gather Round, the idea is to sit down with all of your children of different ages or different grade levels. Sit down. You as the teacher parent is giving one lesson. So it gives you the whole script if you want to read it directly or you can do whatever you want. And then each student has their own workbook for their grade level. And so it's great because then there's different activities and the teacher guide does call out different things on those pages. And so it's nice because you can say, okay, Susie, you're going to color this thing. And Amy, you're going to write me a poem.
Yeah. I think of how much time that is saving you from having to come up with that.
Right. So the prepackaged ones are fantastic for that. If that's in your budget to do or you're really just trying to get the hang of what a unit study looks like.
What would Waldeck Way look like then? So Waldeck Way does the Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's a unit study.
It's a unit study.
Sure.
And you can spread it out over the year.
Yeah.
I was choosing to do 9 Harry Potter days, but just doing potions on one day. But then a friend of ours, she's doing the whole year and she's spending like a month or 2 on each subject.
So I think they may actually call theirs a curriculum.
Oh, okay.
But I really think it functions a little more like a unit study.
Because you do potions and that's
based on a theme.
Yeah, chemistry you have, but then you also have writing prompts.
Right. But it's not a curriculum in the same way where your math curriculum builds in consecutive order of skill and stuff. So even if the science is there, it wouldn't necessarily be presented the way a science curriculum would be. It's all based around things. So it's great information and it's great experiments and all of that, but it's literally curated for the topic.
Yeah.
Which is a unit study.
And that's really nice for variety.
Oh, absolutely.
In your year.
It's especially great for for supplementing.
Yeah.
I think, so it can be
and not
really
a big
fun.
commitment.
Right.
It's
Yeah. So there are prepackaged unit studies and then there are self self-curated unit studies.
Ooh.
And those ones are really fun.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more specifically about some of the ones that we have done or are doing. But I think that if you're not too intimidated, the unit studies are great because you can make them even more personalized to suit your family. So there's a lot of things in a prepackaged unit study that just may not sound awesome to you, or you know your kids aren't really going to love that thing and you don't want to push it for whatever reason. It may not bring value to what you want to accomplish. And so curating your own unit study can be fantastic because you can get the supplemental books that you want to get. You can find the videos that you want to find, you know, whether it's on YouTube or other mediums, you can find the resources you want to use. Then you can also plan your own field trips, because me buying a unit study from a woman in England doesn't mean that she's going to be able to give me some more specific ideas of what to do here in my seasons.
Yeah, like she doesn't know, like for your body one, the Museum of Man.
Right. We have a fantastic thing right here. So, or what exhibits are going to be local at the time, because, you know, there's all kinds of unique opportunities. And so being able to curate your own is fantastic for those really personalized touches. Or if your kids prefer nature over indoor experiences, then what can you do to add to that? And so there's all those different nuancy things. But that's the kind of fun part about a unit study, is that its only definition is that there's multiple subject areas that are about a same topic.
Yeah.
So it's really not more specific than that. And so now...
So I have to tell you.
Yes.
So at my first homeschool conference I went to, so my oldest is, I don't know, 3 or 4, probably 3. And I'm sitting there and I have this great idea of how to homeschool.
Of course.
And it was theme months.
Yes.
Where all the subjects are about that theme.
So, you were ahead of the game.
So I'm sitting in these different sessions, and then after one, I'm engaging in conversation with the moms afterwards, 1 or 2 of them, and we're talking. I was like, okay, here's my idea of what I want to do. I want to have, you know, and I said the theme every month, and math problem, everything is all around that theme. And they're like, oh, you like unit studies. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that, but this is what I want to do. Yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm going to come up with like my own curriculum about it. And they're like, well, that's a unit study. Like, look at a unit study, and it's been done for you. And I was like, what?
No.
Okay, unit study. I'm like writing down unit study. And I was a teacher, but I was single subject, so I didn't know about, everything was segmented, you know?
There's a lot that we don't know. Yeah. And so that's why we wanted to cover this. Was I think we take for granted that at this point in our journey, a unit study is an obvious thing to us.
Right.
But it's not for everybody, or it's intimidating, or people are so stuck with their curriculums that they don't feel that they can also do a unit study. Yeah. But curating your own unit study can incorporate your stuff.
Oh, totally. And unit studies can add, you know, when I think of like a mini unit, say like a theme day, but even like when I think of the ones we did, especially the younger they were, over a course of a month, it informed our field trips. It informed the books I got from the library, and it just added some extra spark to the day.
Right. Well, having a topic means you can see it everywhere, right? Or you can look for it everywhere. So when you're in the car, if your topic is weather, you can talk about what you're seeing and what you're, you know, experiencing, how you're feeling. You know, there's all kinds of things that just come up naturally. And as homeschoolers, and us just personally, we believe that education is every day, all the time. Right. You know, so when people ask, when do you do school? We always laugh a little bit to ourselves. Every day, all the time. You know, like, what do you mean? Do you mean, when did I open a math book? Because
when did I make them sit at a table and use a whiteboard?
Right. But we're always discussing and seeing what's around us. Yeah. And the fun part about something thematic, it means that you're looking for something with intention.
Yeah. And usually it's something that somebody in the group is interested in.
Right.
You know, either the parent or one of the children, or even the spouse that says, I really want them to learn this because I want to build on that and do this book series, or I want to go here for a family vacation. And so then you do that, you know.
Yeah. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to segue into what I consider the 2 main types of unit studies. There's probably other kinds as well. But
this is our expertise.
This is ours, yes. So the two main types, the first one being the formal unit study. So this would be more like what I just outlined. It's kind of pre-planned. You have an idea whether it's based on the kid's interests or yours. You've already got all the resources lined up. You have somewhat of a time-specific plan also. Say you're going to study it for a month or 2 months, and it may be flexible, but you still have an idea of how much time it's going to be.
Yeah.
And you've already outlined the subject areas and how you're going to supplement something if you aren't including math with the theme, because some themes aren't as easy to include certain
math.
subjects.
Unless you're going to write your own math word problems or something.
Right. And even in the one that I buy, I've noticed some of it's kind of a stretch, and I'm like, you don't have to do that. Right. It's not quite at the skill level, because that's the thing. I mix and match our skill level with different curriculums that I've chosen for my child. And so a unit study that's already prepackaged and done for you gets close-ish.
Yeah.
But it's not quite right.
I know Waldeck Way, the Harry Potter one, they do say use your own math.
Right. Yeah. Because it's too hard.
It's too hard, yeah.
It's too hard to accommodate multi-levels.
Yeah.
And because it's so individualized, and so the Gathered Round, she even offers pre-reading level, which would be, preschool through maybe TKK.
Yeah.
And then it has an early reader level. So then it has a very simplified version that's easy for new readers or emerging readers.
Are her kids grown? Do you know anything about her?
I know some about her, but not those details. I think she has 4.
The amount of time that this would take.
Yeah. Well, I think she has a whole team now.
Oh, okay.
Because it's designed beautifully, and I'll get there when I show off my unit study.
But it's why you watch the YouTube.
Yes, it's designed beautifully, and so that's a huge appeal. So she has definitely a team now. So she may be behind a lot of the thought. She's definitely behind how the unit studies are laid out and presented, because I think it's very templated and just changes with each topic.
Okay.
Yeah. But so a formal unit study would just be all laid out. You have a plan, you're sticking to the plan, and you present that to your children. And so, that's what I consider formal.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like a formal curriculum, something you sit down with intentionally and present.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I'll start with mine.
Please do.
This is the student book, and my daughter has already sketched while listening to the lecture.
I thought that was part of it for a second.
Oh, no.
She's so good.
Yeah.
So cute.
I don't know. So if you're watching, I'm not sure if you can see, but she sketches these little creatures.
So cute.
But I figured it was time to talk about the human body. And, let her have the opportunity to ask any questions she's curious about and open up all of that.
Can we talk about the cover?
Yes.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's half watercolor and then half sketched and watercolored human body.
Yes.
So the blob of watercolor hosts the title. And
it's gorgeous.
Me and you caring about aesthetics.
Right.
It makes me happy every time I look at it. And same with their Gather Round Christmas one.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I didn't even print all the pages because I didn't really want to use all my printer ink.
It's a lot of ink.
It is. And for the Christmas one specifically, we had so many different levels that I chose to buy the PDF bundle that had the teacher guide and all the levels. If I wanted it printed, I would have had to choose, because I wasn't going to pay to have the printed books for all of them for one-time use.
Yeah.
Because I knew we weren't going to cover the whole thing either.
So you just have to make a decision. Is it the Barnes & Noble printing? Is that what, or they print it?
They print it and send it to you. And it looks beautifully printed with the coil.
Oh, yeah, the coil.
I know.
Nice.
So Mandy was really kind and let me use her comb binding, which is still fantastic.
It's great, yeah.
It's great. But there's something about that coil binding.
So I know our friend up the street said that, I think it's Barnes & Noble printing. Okay. They will also print for you.
That's cool. So I did think about that. But then for me, having paid for the PDF version, I didn't necessarily also want to pay to have it printed.
I know, yeah.
So it was kind of like, oh, well, if I'm going to
and you have great paper and you have a great printer.
I do. So it was just me picking and choosing. So I printed the entire student book. And so, like, even within the book.
Oh, yeah. The watercolor droplets are there.
Right.
Yeah, it's so
the
pretty.
Illustrations and all kinds of things. They're just beautiful. So the student book is fantastic. The lessons are only a couple of pages. She writes a letter to the actual student talking about why she came up with this topic and how she wants to approach it. And this is a Christian-based unit study. Probably should have mentioned that sooner. So for anyone who's not looking for a Christian-based study, this is not for you necessarily. Or
I mean, how often is it referring to a lot?
Fairly often.
Okay.
Often enough.
All right.
But I think that if you were to get the PDF version and print out the pages that were relevant to you, it's not everywhere, but there is definitely.
They have a little reading log.
Yeah. So that has all kinds of neat things. She's got. My daughter. I'll show you. There's the table of contents. And she put her own little check boxes. Not sure if they can show up there on the screen. But she drew her own check box and has checked off the lessons we've done. Although she didn't check off today, so she'll probably do that tomorrow. But we studied the skeletal system today. So,
did you watch the Mr. DeMeo body
not yet,
systems?
because I figured
you haven't done all of them.
Yeah, I'm not through everything yet. But so, for instance, lesson 1, it talks about the creation story a little bit.
So you have some history. Yeah. You have religious history.
Yeah, and she wrote my whole name in there. She drew me. It asked for an art focus and asked to draw somebody. So she drew me.
So there's your art, and then your language arts is them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of
doing poetry and
so it's pretty neatly curated. The teacher guide is fantastic. Now I didn't print all the teacher guide because that had like full bleed images in it, not just the art.
Oh wow.
And that's not even what I'm talking about. It had like a picture, like a photograph image. And so I didn't print all of that. So I kind of printed out the outlines so that I could see. So here's what the teacher guide would look like. It would tell you, this is lesson 1, tell you for each workbook level what you're doing for each subject. So you can give specific instruction from here without having to go around to each of your children and look at their book and then talk about it. Yeah, convenient. So it is convenient. So that's really great. Now, as you know, my personal approach is more unschooly. So I was really taking a chance studying the human body this time. And I don't feel any pressure to do a daily lesson. It fits in where it fits in. There's nothing about it that's associated with real time.
That's good. They don't make you have a schedule.
Right. Yeah. So I don't feel any urgency to get through it unless I need to move on to something else. But this is kind of what I'm doing for the time being.
And there's a bunch of other books. So on Instagram, you posted a picture of some of the books. Now these are her recommended books or some of her recommended books?
A couple of them were her recommended books. And then some were books that we already had. This is one I bought when my daughter was in preschool. The Journey Through the Human Body. It had a huge fold-out poster. I think I saw it at our Children's Discovery Museum one day.
By John Haslam and Steve Parker. So not an Usborne book.
No, it's not. No, but I got it because we were looking at it at the when they added that doctor exhibit to our Discovery. Our children's Discovery, our children's museum. And so it was really cool. So at this point in time, I think my younger son would actually like some of these books more, some of my older books.
Okay.
That I bought a long time ago.
The pictures are great.
The pictures are fantastic. And my older daughter doesn't mind if it's geared towards him.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel insulted by it. Yeah. And then I did do my own searching on Amazon. So I wanted to get one of these big reference books. So it's the Smithsonian Human Body. So that one's pretty great. And she loves reference books. And so it's something she just has fun flipping to a random page and learning about.
Yeah.
And then I did get a little crazy. But I don't know if you've ever seen these. It's the Dover brand or Dover Publishing coloring books. I discovered them when I've been looking for different things for my dance classes and dance camps, and they have some amazing coloring books, and they're just a couple of dollars.
That looks like the Two-Face guy from Batman, where it shows all the muscles on one side.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey. That's right.
So it's, I mean, these are like,
oh yeah, that's like a reference book all on its own.
Detailed. It's a reference book, coloring book. So this is something actually I think she'd like because she likes little detail like that, and it'll be kind of fun for her. Like it's almost like they have it color by number in a sense. Like she could color each of these muscles a different color.
Yeah.
And it would just kind of be a fun way for her to do that if she wanted to. Just an association for the names of things. And I don't expect her to actually know the names. I'm not looking for that level of information. But I like having these kinds of things available. So that's how I chose to curate the resources. But she gives a pretty comprehensive list of books that she suggests and recommends and that she has vetted for her own beliefs and stuff.
So when are you supposed to do these books? Like, do you just open your day with them, or does she say this is a time to do one of your books?
She doesn't, not that I've seen yet, but so I may just be too early on where she doesn't call it out in the lesson plan to read that book. But she segments the lessons very transparently. So when you're studying the skeletal system, it's probably the time to read a book about bones. You know, so it seems fairly obvious which books go with which lesson. So that's kind of nice. So she does that legwork for you, but in a sense, if you don't want to do it, you're kind of also building your own unit study simultaneously. So that's what I'm trying to learn right now personally, is whether this has been worth it to me, even though I'm going off plan.
Well, it depends on price too. If you're paying $200 and you go off plan. But like the Waldeck Way for me, that was like $30 or $40.
Yeah, this was $20 because I only needed the one workbook. So I got the PDF, $20 to purchase the unit study PDF.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then, you know, whatever I spent printing and binding.
What are all the different subjects that she has in there?
She incorporates everything except for mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah. History, social studies, science.
So the history would be like about what then?
Like discovering what the bones are made of.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
And then they suggested Operation Ouch, which is a new YouTube that we're totally loving.
Oh, cool.
It's set up like Wildcrats with the these guys that are like two brothers, but they're British.
Oh, fun.
And they're fun, but they have that high energy, and she's not too old for that yet. And so it's kind of perfect. And
it's a YouTube?
It's YouTube. And so they don't have the cartoon aspect. So they don't become cartoons, but they go and see real children. They go visit other doctors in their practices and meet patients and talk about whatever is related to their topic of the day. Yeah. And so that was interesting. And then they filmed one about bones during COVID. And so they did their own experiments in their own homes and told the kids how they could do it themselves. So usually the show's premise is do not try this at home. Right. And so it was fun for them to say, do try this at home.
How cute.
So it was just really cool. So, you know, historically learning about like how we found these things out, why we know this, and all of that stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, what I like about unit studies is the mixed media. It's not everything is just a workbook.
Right.
Or everything is just picture books, or everything is just reference books, or everything's just film or YouTubes or art. It's a mixed bag of how you're getting the information, which I think is also fun too, because when you think of like traditional school, when I was teaching 7th and 8th grade English, we would read Where the Red Fern Grows every year. And when I would get to show the movie, I was ecstatic, like finally a visual. And then when we did poetry, I would have them have a canvas where they would pick one of their poems. And we spent a whole week where I would teach them art. I'm not an art teacher, but I would teach them art.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ideas and expression, and they could do whatever they want to represent one of their poems. And then, of course, it looked great on the parent open house night. Yeah, you know. So, but I always loved being able to bring in something else besides their Prentice Hall literature textbook. You know. Yeah.
What was really fun was today was the first day that we opened our 3D skeleton, and I left him over there behind the camera.
Oh yeah, you brought him and everything.
Yeah, I bought him and everything.
He's in the pictures.
Oh yes, exactly. So don't worry, you'll get to see them there if you're watching the YouTube. If not, this may be a good episode to go and do that. But it was really fun to open him up, and I had left him out in that display picture that you may have seen on Instagram. He was there, but my son is a little bit scared of him.
Oh, well, his little eyeballs really pop out at you.
It's a little dramatic.
Like, hey!
Yeah. So it wasn't my son's favorite, but I figured if I left it out, but in the box for a couple of days, maybe we'd get a little more comfortable. So he was a little uncomfortable when we unboxed him today. It's a him, apparently. This
Have you named him?
No.
You should have Augie name him, and then that might help him with his.
I don't know if he's. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he can think of a name. Yeah, we'll see. Otherwise, we'll let Sophia do it.
It'd be fun.
Weird. Yeah. But so when you take him out of the box, he doesn't have his legs attached. So we had to go and fish out his leg bones. And then we also had to peel all the muscles off because this particular skeleton also has the muscles and the organs.
Yeah.
And so it's not each individual bone, which I would personally love. I've been on the lookout for a full-size skeleton for a couple years now.
Someone found one, and I was looking on a Facebook group, and it was really expensive though.
Oh yeah. See, I don't have a budget for it, but I would love it for my dance teaching. I'm constantly naming muscles and naming bones and talking about posture and position.
Your dance school should buy one, and then on the days that you want to go do that, you just go to the dance school.
That would be cool, but I don't need it for the purposes I bought this little guy for.
Yeah,
so,
cute.
But he's great because I know my daughter will love putting his muscles back on. And his organs, like it's already super awesome.
You know what?
For her.
You know what would be really fun if you guys made a stop motion animation with him? Because if his hands stay, that would be a fun little mixed media project.
It definitely would. And the first thing I did with that skeleton was get him in a ballet position. So I was like, look, this is what I'm always telling my students about their arms. I'm like, look at how the bones are. My daughter was like, oh, I know. I'm like, I know but I'm just so excited. And,
that's awesome.
That was
what
really
a great
fun.
idea.
Yeah. Well, that's why I want a skeleton for my dance room.
Totally.
But, it was fun to be able to put this guy in his first position pose.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited about your unit study because I'm borrowing it after you. So.
Yes. Okay, but let's go on to yours because you have done a couple of really cool unit studies.
Okay, so I did one of Beatrix Potter. So this stems from doing Who is Beatrix Potter? Right. Because I knew I wanted to start doing the Who Is, and I think I just started them last year.
Yeah.
And the reason I did Beatrix Potter is because I knew I wanted to do these, Peter Rabbit books. And
so cute.
And I have the whole box set of 22 of them. I actually got it for $6 one time on Amazon. And it said they were used, but they were in as you can see, perfect condition.
Nice.
Yeah, but sometimes they're like $60, $70.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So if you keep your eye open. Anywho, I got the box set years ago and already read through them with the first two kids.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted the third kid to go through them, but that's a lot of my time to do just for her. I hate to say it like that, but I have three different levels now I'm dealing with,
Anyone who has multiple kids knows.
Yeah. So I wanted to think of a way to involve the older ones, and these stories are treasures.
They are.
And the art is a treasure. Yes. So I thought, I'll do a Beatrix Potter unit. So there is a curriculum called A Year of Tales.
Okay.
And it's just like what you were describing where it's a PDF, you can print it, but it is aimed for the whole year, and it's like one book per 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. So, or every 10 days or however you want to do it. But, and there's a Bible verse that goes along with it, and there's a whole plan and calendar. And that was a bit much for me because I was like, I was just going to do 1 to 2 months.
Right.
And since I did at the time, it was last year, so I had a second and third grader. I thought, this isn't going to be our core curriculum.
Right.
So I had a plan of 1 to 2 months. And so we read through all the books. Actually, we didn't finish, we didn't get the last 2 done, but we also would read Who is Beatrix Potter?
Right.
And while I was reading Beatrix Potter, I had 3 stations or 4 stations set up. And I had a Peter Rabbit coloring book.
Nice.
That had a quote from one of the books or whatever. I had a station with that paper you paint with water.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So I had that, and then I had I have this book that's 2 or 3 inches thick, or 3 or 4 inches thick. It's a beautiful large hardback color printed book called The Art and Illustrations of Beatrix Potter. I may have packed it away, but and it showed how she really was into mushrooms, painting,
so cool.
like all these things you don't even know that she developed over time because she was not allowed to interact with other children growing up. So her life was her garden.
It's crazy.
And like her, in England terms, their garden, but it's their yard, right?
Right.
And because she only had her little brother who then was shipped off to boarding school, her only friend was her governess.
Oh.
So, and they were worried about her ever getting sick, and that's why she wasn't allowed to. And so reading Who is Beatrix Potter, I had the watercolors out, I had the book there, and they could trace it, they could draw it, and then they could also watercolor it. That's awesome. and so they would just cycle through, every day when we read one chapter.
Right.
So then so the literature would have been reading the Peter Rabbit books.
Right.
The history would have been Who is Beatrix Potter. Mm-hmm. And what's great about the Who is books, depending on who wrote it and stuff, but they're really good about providing a context of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they would say like, oh, she wasn't allowed to pick what she wore until her mother died when she was like in her 40s.
Right.
Like, what in the world? That they knew
crazy.
To point that out, that at that point in time, like the rich, like she grew up very wealthy, the rich, like, had a determined set of how they dress.
Right.
And those are things
Right. Well, you and I take for granted that because we read books like that.
Yeah.
We read
Pride
the
and
Jane
Prejudice.
Eyre,
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice and all of that. So we automatically know what time it must be.
Yeah. So, and then the art would have been the stations, know, and then, so then here's the science portion. So then we studied gardens. So cool. I had, I think it's called Gardening Lab. I had this book and we painted terracotta pots and we cleaned out the side yard and laid the garden boxes. We never planted in the garden boxes because I ran out of steam at that point, but we did plant in our terracotta pots.
Right.
And we planted tulips and some other kind of bulbs and
beautiful.
Yeah. And then what we also did was the math portion was we created like a pictograph of what the sun looked like every hour of the day on one day for how much, not the actual sun, but how much sun was provided to where our garden boxes were.
Right. That's really
so
cool.
So we knew if it was full sun, full shade, or both, or hybrid, So also then, just bouncing off of nature, we have this book called What's the Difference?
Oh, cute.
And so these are all like different things in nature, like crocodile versus alligator, owl versus horned owl, cool. Viper versus garter snake. And I remember having them do like Venn diagram for whatever kind of animals they wanted to do. And they each picked like different ones and then they would present it.
That's cute.
So, I think I had to help the 5-year-old at the time. Like, I think I had her draw pictures in her Venn diagram or whatever.
Right.
But like if the eyes were different, the eyes would, Yeah. So that would have been the math. And, and then after we finished Who is Beatrix Potter, we did a week where we did an informative paragraph, which, later on would be an informative essay.
Right.
But we did like one day of brainstorming of facts about her and made clouds and stuff, like the cloud brainstorming thing with her name in the middle and the main ideas and then what came off of that. And then the next day they got to pick which, it stayed up on the board. They got to pick which facts they wanted to do.
Right.
And wrote down those. And then the next day, I think we talked about doing a topic sentence, and this is just off the top of my head. It was, I didn't have anything to go off of, but there's some common sense,
Yeah.
We talked about doing a topic sentence and where did they want to go and a concluding sentence. And then the fourth day was what facts how they were going to write the facts in the middle. And that the last day they actually did their final, they did a rough draft. I helped them edit it. And then the last day was the final draft.
That's awesome.
So, and I think we went into like November and we started it end of August,
Cool.
And we went to Home Depot one time and picked out with the spouse, and that was really fun. We picked out different seeds that we wanted to plant. Of course, we didn't plant them because we didn't do our garden. We didn't finish our garden box, but it was getting all the soil and everything. It was just a lot, for me, but it was just a really fun way to study a person,
right?
And have really cool activities, and I knew we weren't probably going to study her in 5 years. You know, like it's out of their...
Kind of outgrow her work. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many other things I could have done. I could have had them ask them to write their own Peter Rabbit story, you know, or write a poem, or, you know, research one of the animals that would have been in Peter Rabbit's, you know, stories and teach us about it. You know, watch some YouTubes about it. You know, I got a Peter Rabbit puzzle that was like 500-piece puzzle, and we put that together. Actually, put that together at Christmas because I had forgotten I had it, and I was like, oh. This will be our Christmas puzzle, you know.
Super cool.
So we had that, and you know, there's so many. You could make like the hats that they wore during that time, you know, with some flowers on it, and so many things you can do when you self-curate, or when you have an already laid plan. Then you can more easily add to it. Like you were saying, you had fun looking for other books because you already given a foundation. You don't have to spend your time and energy, you know, doing that. You could now spend more time doing the stuff that was more of interest to you to look up. And so that would be like the Beatrix Potter one, and addressing, and we still did our own math, you know, whatever it was, or, you know, I still did probably our spelling words.
Yeah. We're still opening our math book.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And, you know, I probably did Story of the World in the car. You know, I was probably doing Chinese at that point.
Right.
So, you know, we still had all these, you know, they still had their piano and everything. So, we did watch the Peter Rabbit movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That maybe that's what inspired me. Maybe that had come out, and then that inspired me to do it.
Right.
Watch, you know.
Right. It reminded you of your book collection.
Yeah. And, So anyway, so there's that.
Yeah.
And then, awesome. And my son was equally happy to do it. It's animals, you know, there's nothing, even though it was about a female, you know, sometimes they're less interested because they don't relate as well to some of the ways that a little girl grows up.
Especially in, you know, what happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It just may not be as relatable, but little girls are going to catch on to that. Like, really? She wasn't allowed to choose her clothes?
I know.
You know, but I don't know. I mean, he gets it from a human perspective, but, you know, it's just different. Right.
And, they talk about how she struggled as a writer. So we talked about what an editor was, and how nobody wanted her stuff. And it was really,
interesting.
She had to find, and it's actually, she had a romantic involvement with her publisher, like one of the people. Yeah. And then he died.
Tragic.
I know. So anyways,
but see, like, how would you have known that if you didn't go that far into it with your kids? Like, you didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't know anything.
Right.
All I knew was there was one Peter Rabbit book, and 5 years prior, I saw that there was a whole collection, bought the collection, read it to them, and knew I wanted to do it again.
Yeah, that's
I didn't know, you know, anything about that. Yeah. Oh, and you know how it started? You know how she started writing these stories? Because she didn't have children. And her governess, or she didn't have friends. Her governess went off and got married.
Oh, her only friend.
Yeah. And so then they had correspondence, and her governess was like a sister to her at this point. Yeah. And her governess's child was sick. So Beatrix wanted to write this little story for him.
Cute.
Or her. I think it was a little boy. And wrote this little story about Peter Rabbit and put some art in it and kept sending these letters. And finally the governess is like, you need to do something with these stories.
Other people need to appreciate these.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. That's all such a neat, you know.
But look at now the whole conversation you can have about Beatrix Potter.
Yeah.
And who knows what your kids will remember at some point.
Totally, yeah.
But that's...
And if they were super interested, you know, then, and we do talk about how like our favorites, like my favorite story is Two Mice, and it's one of my daughter's. I think it's Ruby's favorite too, because these two bad mice go into the dollhouse and they're trying to eat the turkey, but it's plastic.
Oh, hilarious!
Yeah, and they're just like Pamela and whatever the dolls' names were. What are they doing here? Like
funny.
They're so confused.
Right. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so it's just really creative. Okay, can I do one more theme?
Of course.
Or one more unit study? I call it theme because in my head they were themes.
Right. So this is one more formal unit study, one that you had completely planned
Everything was planned out. Yeah. Formal unit study of transportation.
Yes.
So I'd gone to the library. We've talked about this before in a previous podcast. You saw me with like 24 transportation.
Right, it was before we were friends.
Yeah.
I was just ballet teacher, Miss Jessica.
Yeah. And I think my daughter was 3 and my son was 5, and he was doing preschool, and I had assigned a theme for every month. And so for you know, I did community, and we, you know, we did weather, and so transportation. So I have the literature books from the train museum. So I'm sure we read those, you know, introduced new words, all that stuff. We also looked at maps.
Right.
So that would have been the maps and legends. So that was his first exposure to legends, and he's super into trains. So we probably pointed out where the train stations were, or the bus stations and things like that. Art, I remember I had all these transportation stickers that people are like, where did you get that? Where did you get those? I posted a picture of them, and they were like one way or merge, and like all these streets like stop and stuff. And so we made our own little roads. And they got to draw it however they want. And then I gave them the stickers, and they could put the stickers where they wanted them. And you know where I got them? Off of Facebook. I was on some Facebook group in our city. And the city had, and this former preschool was closing down. And
that's wild.
She was just like 5 minutes away from me. Like, it was in her house. And she was getting rid of all of her stuff. And she had this huge bag of these transportation. Yeah. So, okay. So then, engineering. So part of the unit say, you know, you have all these different subjects, but then you can introduce other subjects that aren't like core subjects. Yeah. So what we did was, part of our study was to go to Disneyland, of course, because I had a pass. And we looked at how each ride that we went on transported the people.
Ooh, fun.
So then we could do the boat and the flights and so what was cool is we went with my dad, who's an aerospace engineer and a mechanical engineer. So he would say, we were in line for Small World. He's like, that's a conveyor belt that they're on to like get you started onto the track. So then he talked about what the conveyor belt is. So cool. And, you know, so we used Disneyland to look at the engineering, like the magnets that propelled the roller coaster at California Adventure. It's magnets moving along. So he tried to, it's hard to explain that. It probably didn't have as much an effect, but it taught me. Right. Where then in future, even years, I would say, oh, those are magnets.
Right. Did you know?
And they're like, what?
Right.
Yeah. It's just propelling it forward by positive and negative, you know, just moving it along.
Wild.
Yeah. And then just the content of transportation. Like, we rode a bus to Starbucks, and we talked about bus transportation and how many wheels does it have? Let's count the wheels. And, you know, there might be 8 or, you know, 10 wheels or however many wheels, you know, the double wheels. The bus. Yeah, they have double wheels, you know. Some have double wheels, depending on how big it is and how long it is. And so we did that with the metro too. How many cars does the metro have? Right. We took the train to Union Station, and I've talked about this before, but we took the ferry to Coronado.
Perfect.
You know, that was our little boat ride, and it was just a really fun. Oh, and we would do word problems, and then I think we looked up some kind of history of like public transportation, like you know, the trolley, like something. The trolley was used, you know, and the electric, how it's like connected, and so it was just like horse and buggy, you know,
right.
So I can't remember how deep we dove into the historical aspect, but it was like enough to say, look, some people used to be pulled by a horse,
right?
You know, or they used to ride a horse, and it was whatever even the literature books brought up to us, right? While we're reading them, you can discuss it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was just a really fun. It informed our field trips, and you know, I'm sure there was some food we could have made, you know, that looked like a train, or, you know, a train museum. We went to the model train museum, you know, as that was one of our museum trips. I mean, we'd go there anyways, let's be honest.
Right. But it was the perfect opportunity.
It was, So it's nice living in a city where there's so many different museums within an hour of,
absolutely,
you know, so many different directions. You know?
Yeah.
So, so that would be a formal unit study.
Yep.
And what was cool is, transportation was, I specifically picked, not just because he was in preschool and I had another one basically in preschool as well, and they need to learn like all the different types.
The basics.
The content of that, but because that was his interest, like he's
passion.
Huge. That's his number one.
Right.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the other type of unit study, which has many different names and forms, but we're going to call it the rabbit hole or rabbit trail unit study. So you came to me with rabbit trail, which I thought was funny because I've always called it a rabbit hole. Like you go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
but
that's it.
Well, no, it's not. You can also go down the rabbit trail. Like, it's just funny.
Yeah.
They're just two different things. But I think I mentioned I always thought rabbit hole because of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyway, either way, it's the rabbit hole or rabbit trail unit study. And it's almost like an accidental unit study. Mm-hmm. So the topic is chosen somewhat spontaneously with some intention either by the parent teacher or by the students. Mm-hmm. And then from there, with a blazing passion, typically you are on the fly adding to it as you go and as the interest is still there and present. And so it's kind of fun because if you show them the YouTube video, then suddenly there's another aspect that you can sneak in here, or an opportunity for an art project. And then there's the opportunity to go to this museum because there's an art project just like that. And then from there, that's what we mean by rabbit hole, is one thing keeps leading you to the next thing, and you're just diving down deeper into this really fun topic or theme. And it's just fun because you go as far as there's interest to go, mm-hmm. or as far as you personally feel led to go. But there's a lot less pre-planning involved in our definition of this type of unit study.
Right. Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to do that with an adult book club.
Yes.
I mean, not adult, but like a grown-up book club. So I proposed it to the book club that I'm not in now, but... and they weren't interested in doing it. But what I think would be fun is when we read a book, that something from that book informs
that's cool
what the next book would be. Like if it mentions a place, is there a book that mentions that place? Or if it mentions a time in history, what does that? And then that next book then would direct us to the next book.
Right.
And that book, and then just to see where that would take us.
Right. Just even for a year to make that the plan.
That's what I wanted to do.
It's just short term.
Can we just do it for 1 year just to see what books it leads us to? Right. Because the ones we think up on our own or research, you get to totally different, like a different list, whereas if one informs the other, you might read a book that you would have never thought of reading.
Right. And you start talking about that in your book club naturally, right? Like you come up with the topic that's exciting, and then from there, that would be fun to see what's most exciting to people. Yeah. No, I like that idea. So the idea is that you're either using content that you already have. So I know many unschoolers tend to have a lot of resources on hand to use when the opportunity arises. It's not necessarily pre-planned into a school year. But, reference books and other things are something that a lot of unschoolers tend to have around because we want constant access. We're just not, I don't want to use the word forcing because I don't think that's what the non-unschoolers are doing by any means. But it's child-led. Yeah. So if they have an interest and you have a resource, fantastic. Yeah. So this rabbit hole or rabbit trail idea is similar. So you may already have a lot of resources that are addressing this topic or theme that has come up more spontaneously, or you're going to have to kind of come up with them on the fly. And that part's kind of fun too, because you want to keep it quick and moving to stay with their interest, because kids can move on pretty fast. Right. So I think of this unit as being a very spontaneous unit study, or I like to call it the unschoolers unit study, if you will. You just jump on that train when it comes in, and you just keep going. And you don't really realize until after the fact that what you did was you put together a unit study. Yeah. And then for someone like us, and we've got this blog or podcast, it's fun because we can kind of retroactively say, hey, here's this unit study for you now, or whatever it is. I mean, we're not really in the unit study business at this point.
Right. But even just a friend saying like, oh, yeah, I was thinking of studying animals. Right. You could say, oh, we'll start with this book and see where it leads you. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought we would talk about your example of going down the rabbit trail.
And I've barely mentioned it before, but I'll dive into it a little bit more. So Jane Goodall.
Yes.
I read Who is Jane Goodall?
Yes.
And apparently, I don't know, within a couple chapters, because that's her childhood, she mentions that they mentioned that her favorite book as a child was Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah.
I had Dr. Dolittle in my bookshelf because I had just bought a huge amount of like used books.
That's awesome.
So that was just one I had grabbed.
Right.
It kind of makes me excited to go look through my pile and see what...
Right.
I could even start with one of those. Anyways.
That's how a rabbit trail happens.
Yeah, exactly. So, or it's kind of like when we've talked about Homegrown and how they said to read the book Hatchet.
Yes.
That'd be like us then going and reading the book Hatchet.
Right. And then from there.
Saying, oh, if they're really into axing, you could do axe skills or something. Who knows?
Axing.
Yeah. So who's Jane Goodall? And, so then her favorite book was Dr. Dolittle. So we did Dr. Dolittle. And then in Dr. Dolittle, they mentioned the Canary Islands.
Right.
So then I was like, I just went to the Canary Islands last year.
Right.
So then I pulled up on our big screen my pictures of the Canary Islands. And I think we watched a YouTube about it as well because I didn't go everywhere. I just hung out at the beach.
Yeah, you were a tourist.
So... so we learned about the Canary Islands and then I think I asked them, did they want to learn about chimpanzees? So probably watched a YouTube or something about chimpanzees. I did force him to watch a documentary about Jane Goodall and I actually bought it.
Oh, it's fascinating.
It's so good.
Yeah. Tears.
Cause she made it, so like she and her ex-husband, her husband at the time made it. And then I know we looked up Africa stuff, and then rainforests and jungles, and a lot of it was my leading, saying, let's stop right here. Let's look at jungles real quick.
Right.
Let's see what this looks like, or let's watch the YouTube on chimpanzees, and then we have animal grossology.
Right.
So I'm sure I opened up, whatever pages they were interested in reading about.
Right.
Like we probably read it. And then you had a picture book of Jane Goodall.
Yeah, Me Jane by Patrick McDonnell.
That you talked about on your favorite books. So when I told you we were reading Who's Jane Goodall, you're like, oh, I have a really good book.
You have to use this. Yeah, because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So then I read them that. And, I had them do a watercolor. I said, pick any picture from this picture book.
Yeah.
And I want you to do that watercolor or a version of it.
Yeah, you had some very great renditions.
Yeah. And I think my girls decided to do it. And I did leave things like that. I give them options. Sure. I don't make them do beautiful art, So
it's not everyone's.
Yeah. So I don't think my son did it, but so it was just a really fun. And I'm sure there's so many other things that we did, but since I didn't write anything down, we just did it as we did it. But it was just a really fun thing that we did that month.
Yep.
And maybe it went into the second month because that's 2 read alouds that I did. The Dr. Dolittle was a long one. Oh, and then we tried to find the movie Dr. Dolittle maybe first. And then when I read the reviews, none of them really match a book.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, we need to read the book. Or it could have been, oh, we have the book. Let's also watch the movie. However I did it. But that's the thing. I don't know for sure.
Right.
Because we just did it like I was excited about it.
Right.
So it could be that your child's excited about it. It could be that you're excited about it. But the whole reason I introduced Jane Goodall was because one especially of my kids loves animals. Right. And the other one does. And my other daughter does too. Yeah. And kids in general.
Most
like
kids do. Yeah.
But I knew for sure one would be enthralled by it.
Right.
So it is kind of funny though. The books that I read aloud are never as good as the ones that the spouse reads aloud. Like that's like their required school when I read it. But if he had read the exact same book, they would have been like ecstatic. Yeah. So that's just a kind of funny side note.
Yeah.
So that's one rabbit trail. And I haven't done it very often because, I kind of let the other things we need to get done in the day, like squelch that. So,
and that's what I was going to say too, is I can't say that I've really created anything I could call a unit study. but we certainly do plenty of, more unschooling ways, which means when she asks a question, we go and research the answer.
Right.
And, if it leads us somewhere else, great. If it doesn't, then we just move on.
Yeah.
And so I feel like obviously nothing has led us so far, or I haven't felt led so far that it's created anything that's really bigger or meatier. I mean, you were only planning on reading Jane Goodall, which would have been a week or less of you reading out loud.
Oh, and I'd bought a bunch of, I did pre-buy a bunch of books about animals.
Okay.
Because that was my nature year. So I was doing Beatrix Potter. I was doing Jane Goodall.
Right.
But I did have animal books, which I don't even know if we cracked open.
Right, because you ended up getting very focused on Jane Goodall and her work.
I probably completely forgot about doing animals in general.
Right.
She was just going to be one example.
But that's the interesting part about this idea of the rabbit hole or rabbit trail is it's really extremely interest-based.
Yeah.
And it's less pre-planned and more spontaneous.
Yeah.
And so, while you originally thought you might do reading Jane Goodall because you were really excited about the Who Is series at that point. That was when you were first
I'm still super excited about it.
It's still really awesome.
Yeah.
But then, you thought you would segue into a more general topic and that's not what happened.
Yeah. And I think after that experience, that's when I did get knowing now that there were things to reference. And I remember taking notes when I read Dr. Dolittle, I put the note in the front to remember, because I didn't stop right at that second to go check the bookshelf, because just to make sure we did have it, there's I think we got White Fang at the same time. We got a whole bunch of books at the same time. So, but then I knew to check Jeff Kinney ahead of time.
Sure.
So then I knew, okay, Who Is offers a lot of references. Beatrix Potter didn't so much, probably because that's too much in the past. Her favorite book probably isn't around. I don't remember what they,
it wasn't significant at least. Yeah.
But Jeff Kinney, his favorite was Calvin and Hobbes and those kinds of things. So I was able to find those books ahead of time.
Right.
So then I could develop a unit study around Jeff Kinney and it was a mini unit because I knew we didn't need to spend that much time. And they had read all the Diary Wimpy Kids and stuff like that.
Only if you wanted to dive into comics in general, maybe. But
so I had them read. I have now more Calvin and Hobbes books because they read through the first one, wanted more, so I got two more. So they each had their own to look through. But
and my daughter's obsessed, and so now they'll understand her random references.
Well, maybe if they keep reading it, I think Ruby's read through one of them 2 times,
Right. Her cousins know it really well. And so when they come over, they were playing soccer out in our backyard, and all of a sudden they start playing a game of Calvin Ball, which is from Calvin and Hobbes, which is Calvin. The rules are never the same each time you play, so the rules are always changing, and they're like,
funny.
So it's
That's
funny
cute.
idea. Yeah. It's just fun that they know this thing.
If we were rabbit trailing, then we would go play, we would make up what our game would look like for Calvin Ball.
Right.
And then I would probably have them make their own, say, hey, who wants to write their own comic? Which I think we did do that for Diary Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
I had empty speech bubbles and they could fill those in. I had a whole workbook. We talked about anthropomorphism with Calvin and Hobbes, but you could go down that too. Let's talk about poetry and use that as a tool, but the Who Is so it wasn't so much a rabbit trail with Jeff Kinney. And it wasn't as exciting because I had pre-bought everything. Right. And now it would have been nice if you did it, you would have had Calvin and Hobbes at your house and you could have just said, oh, let's just spend some time reading Calvin and Hobbes, and let's go play the game and whatever. But anyways, it is a fun thing to do.
Right. And then, of course, everything is just customizable. So while I only kind of outline 2 types of unit studies, the sky's the limit, man. Now that you understand, or not you, but now that the idea of just being able to reach out to different interests and different ideas and different mediums and resources. Yeah. And
if you're going somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
There's your unit study. Like Alaska, we studied a whole month of Alaska before we went, and that's all we did. Yeah. I had a little picture book for each city we were going to.
So cool.
We studied the Iditarod. I had too many books about the Iditarod. I had...
But one of your children probably loved it.
Oh, yeah. And we watched YouTubes about the First Nation people and also Inuits. And And it was, and they watched the live cam of the bears catching the salmon.
Cool.
And, so many things that we did that were awesome that I'm not even thinking of, that were all different aspects of Alaska.
Yeah, absolutely. And then your actual Alaska trip was spectacular.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. But it meant so much more because they had learned about it ahead of time.
Right. That's the cool thing about unit studies. So that's definitely my biggest experiment, using this pre-planned one.
Yeah.
Because I don't do a lot of formal educational things with my daughter.
Right.
I mean, we definitely are going through math curriculum, and we are just finishing one level and moving into the next. So we're definitely doing things. So it's hard to describe and not say that I'm doing formal things, because we don't not do anything.
Right.
But I don't necessarily outline an entire school year's worth of plans and ideas. Right. We cover the math we cover at the pace that feels comfortable. And so me choosing a unit study that we didn't talk about before, based on something that I feel is important for us to talk about. Like, she's just going on 9 years old, and, she hasn't asked some of those questions that every parent kind of dreads or waits for. And I was always of the mind of waiting to talk about it until she asked.
Yeah.
But I've been prepared to talk about it for at least 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never come up. And this is the kid who loves animal documentaries, completely understands mating behavior in animals and all of these things. And she has never asked how babies are created.
Yeah.
Never. And so and now she's even getting into a phase where she thinks kissing is gross.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. I'm trying not to force information on her that she may not be ready for. Right. But as as parents, you don't want them to find out from other people or other children specifically. Right. I mean, definitely not from other people, but from other children, because they learned at different times, and kids are just kids.
Well, and who knows what they remember. Like, I even think it's I hate to use the word dangerous, but it's a little dangerous when kids even talk like religion.
Oh, sure.
And their belief system, because
it may not be accurately represented.
Yeah, of what's even discussed in the home. Right. And, so I kind of try and walk the line on that, because if they're really excited to share something they learned about God, with a friend.
That should be awesome. Right.
Yeah, it's at the same time, it's like, I try and say, like, at this time of our life, it's the parents' job, to teach that. But you want your kids being able to share things
excited
they're
for that, especially.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part, and she obviously understands a lot about anatomy and all of that stuff, but she's just never asked the question. And so I'm sitting here, and I still constantly go back and forth. And if my husband watches or listens to this, he's going to laugh hysterically, because I'm always like, should we? And I don't know, is it time? But I've always been extremely open with her. So for all I know, she already knows.
Yeah, well, she has a little brother, so she has, at least it's nothing completely foreign to her that you'll be introducing her to.
And she's not a typical overthinker, so I don't think that if it's something we did decide to actually explicitly lay out for her, she's not going to suddenly be thinking about it all the time.
She'll move on. My kids all moved on. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, if she's entering this phase of thinking things romantic or gross, I want to be careful.
Yeah, but it's not a romantic thing.
Right. If I'm coming from it from a scientific standpoint. Yeah. But then there's other things that have come up that make me think, I think we need to cover all of it.
Oh, yeah. See, ours don't know all of it. They just know scientifically how it happens, and,
Yeah. No. Yeah, so anyway, that was why I got started on the human body, and I know she likes science, and especially natural sciences like biology and stuff like that. And so I knew this would be a good study for her, but it's a huge experiment, and I'm really curious to see what she does. She hasn't complained about it.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing it too hard and too fast.
And here's the thing, even if she did complain about it or didn't, whatever her reaction is, it might not be about the unit study. It might be about the content.
Right.
So it might be that that content does or does not have interest for her.
Exactly.
Whereas you pick another unit study about something she's not interested in, she might not like that one, even if she loves this one.
I think that the lessons specifically in this unit study are small enough and are really centered around like the did you know idea. And so it was fun for her to learn that skin is the largest organ on her body.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know that. But then she's like, she takes it further. So maybe she is an overthinker. She's like, did you know that I've licked an organ? Because that's gross.
Cool.
She likes gross things, you know? And so,
I love that.
So that was like something that she wrote down in her workbook that she learned today, you know, is that the skin is an organ and she has licked an organ, you know. And then I learned today that bones are an organ because they develop from
interesting.
cell tissues from, isn't that wild?
Huh. How many other organs do we not know about?
Well, I think it's fascinating that women grow an organ for each child they carry in their uterus. And then you expel it and it's gone. It's a one-time organ. Like what?
Yeah. I remember thinking it was weird I had a little boy inside of me.
It's weird.
I'm like kind of both genders right now.
Yeah. But that's very like those are the interesting things. And so I'll see how the big sex ed conversation comes up. If it does, then I'll provide an update.
Yeah.
But for now, I just want to talk about anatomy, the body systems, organs, you know, all of
Well,
that.
I think that's a great example of of a broader either principle or idea that you want to teach. So you come in with a unit study.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. We made this whole thing and then, you know, it's centered around something that's really important to me to be able to talk about in a proper way and have the basis for it. And so if, you know, she doesn't even ask for another year, we'll have already learned all of this great information and have these resources and apply it to that conversation. You know?
Yeah. And in previous podcasts, you've mentioned that you also want to teach her this so she knows, like, why to take care of her body.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we have about unit studies, but I know we've got some joys to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. So, it was a shocking thing that happened the other day. I was doing their words, so I use spell to write and read.
Right.
And we do, you know, if I was to do like quote unquote school every day, then I would do 10 words a day.
Right.
But we usually have like maybe 2 days like that. So they get, you know, but they still do enough words where when I say it's words time, they're like, oh, okay, let's do this fast. I want to go back to playing my Stratomatic football, you know.
Hilarious.
So I was doing it with the older two, and my 8-year-old was just like, they have to make up a sentence for each word, and she was having so much fun creating like a 5-minute story about each word. And then my son was getting extremely frustrated because he's just like if the word, let's say, was garbanzo, he'd be like, what is a garbanzo? Garbanzo, you know, and let's spell it out. Like, we're done, you know.
Move on.
Yeah, where she was creating these long stories.
That's hilarious.
And he was getting a little frustrated, but she was giggling and having so much fun doing that then he started finding it funny because they were outlandish stories,
right?
You know,
so he was amused eventually.
Yeah. And so that night when we went over our rainbows and puddles, the rainbows are good things that happen in the day. Both of them, their rainbow was doing words.
Nice.
I was like, yeah. 4 or 5 years later, like it made a rainbow. You know,
just keep on going.
I know.
It's really awesome.
Yeah.
All right. My joy is that we did a cousin sleepover the other day, but it was with my daughter and son and my 14-and-a-half-year-old niece.
Oh.
So her younger siblings who normally do the sleepovers with us had other plans. And the family was together. And so I mentioned to my sister-in-law, I said, well, if she would want to come over, she's always welcome. I mean, I don't know if she wants to, but if she does.
And this teenager.
Right, you never know. Like, we tried carefully, but she's a wonderful teenager who invests and engages with all the cousins of all the ages. She's the oldest of all of her cousins. So this is a job she takes seriously. She's not annoyed by them. She's a really wonderful girl. And she's a teenager, which means our time with her is very limited.
Right.
So we often get together with the family and she's not there.
Yeah.
Because she's got commitments that are really valuable and important to her. And so this was just an opportunity. I was like, well, if she wants to. And then all of a sudden my daughter jumped on it and it was special to her. And my daughter's, she's really good at teasing and sarcasm. And so I think that sometimes she teases my niece about being a teenager and that she's too old to do some of the kid games that they play.
Yeah.
But that actually hurts my niece's feelings. Like, I think she knows it's a joke, but it still is like, but really? You know, like, I don't care about that. I want to play with you. Yeah. And so, you know, it's something I've worked with my daughter on to talk about, like, those words impact people. Like, you may love your cousin and you may think she knows that, but when you say that, it makes her feel like you don't love her as much as your other cousins, you know, or whatever it is. Right. And so I try to gently walk her through that. And so the fact that my daughter jumped on it and was super excited that her big cousin wanted to spend time with her and I didn't say a word was awesome. And so they played games. They got the colored pencils out and did like the adult coloring books, and they did all kinds of things. And my niece is she's just the sweetest. And it was really neat to see that, because I mean, I don't know, as a mom and I'm old and sentimental, I just see like, we don't have many years of this left. You know, where one or both of them will want to have that time alone or be available for it. So yeah,
schedules fill up, especially the older you get.
Right.
And,
so that was a big joy in my heart.
Yay.
Yes. All right. Well, that was unit studies.
Fun.